You're listening to the Becoming More Me podcast with me, Theresa Lear Levine. You're already enough. But if you're anything like me, you thrive when you're stretching and developing yourself, creating more of the person you feel called to be. This podcast is here to inspire and support you. Let's release the negative, reinforce the positive, and elevate our vibe together as we tap into our limitless potential to transform and grow. Hey, everybody. Oh, it's going to be a quick one today because I have an appointment in a little bit, but sometimes I need to podcast. I don't know how else to explain it. Other podcasters might understand me. Those of you who are primarily listeners might not get it. I wouldn't have even gotten it before I started podcasting. I remember people telling me like 5 years ago, you got to do a podcast. I was like, a pod what? Like, I had no idea. And then I started looking, I'm like, what is this even? It didn't even make sense. And now it is like the heart and soul, my favorite way to communicate. When I get fired up, I used to go like, oh, I'll go on stories on Instagram, or I'll go make a video and publish it later or whatever. Now I'm just like, just turn on the Zoom and let's podcast. So here I am because I'm feeling a little fired up, and I'm like, it's better to connect and do this when the vibration is right than to try to take a note and be like, this is what I want to talk about later, and then try to get into that vibe later. It's just not going to happen. And I guess that's kind of part of it. When you're feeling something, do it. Do it. Move with the feeling. Don't shove the feeling down, push it away, save it for later. I mean, unless you really, really have to, because you got to do something else totally boring at that time. But when you have a choice and you can follow through with doing the next right thing, aligning with, the next thing that feels great while you're doing it, do that. It beats any to-do list. It beats any like self-imposed, this is what I should be doing or whatever. That high vibration is going to take you where you want to go so much faster than the push, 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 hustle, hustle, hustle kind of vibe. Okay. So yeah, it's been a week, guys. And I'm finally feeling better today. I've been like bleh all week. I was supposed to be running my aligned success workshop this week. And in fact, I had an episode recently that was to go along with the workshop. I published it anyway because it's relevant no matter what. But the workshop took a major turn because I ended up with half my kids homesick. Well, more than half, actually 3 out of 4, and me and my husband out of town. And the whole idea when I do these workshops is kind of the whole idea behind my life. Used to be like crazy, chaotic, cortisol spikes, out of control, like, and now I know how to better harness the calm, the clarity, the confidence. So when I teach a workshop, I'm trying to help people to align their values with their life so that the outcome feels good. Otherwise, we're hustling and grinding for something we don't have yet, that we're desiring. We're never there. We're never present. There's no power of now. When we get there, how do we know? And what's the point anyway? Because we didn't enjoy getting there in the first place, because we were up against burnout and overwhelm and stress and negative emotions. You know what I mean? So coming into the week, and it's supposed to be day 1, and I wake up and I'm sick. It's like, that's interesting, universe. Thank you for that. And now what? And you know what? All I can say is if that had happened to me, well, I mean, it wouldn't have happened to me if I was giving that workshop, because I wouldn't have been giving that workshop back in the time when I would have dealt with it differently. So I guess it's all for naught to even try to explain this. But had this happened when I was running some other event 5, 7, however many years ago, I probably would have just tried to push through it. I would have been like, I've already committed to these people. They've got it on their calendars. They're showing up. They want this, and I need to deliver. And I would have felt horrible doing it. And I can think of times when I did things like that, whether it was when I wasn't 100% feeling well, or when I knew my kids needed me, but instead I was like, but I'm supposed to be doing this right now. And it just felt awful. So I woke up, I knew my kids needed me. They were sick. Like, we were all like legit sick. So I did what felt aligned. And it came so naturally. And I came up with a wonderful solution. I ended up offering all the people that registered a mini version of the workshop delivered one-on-one. Like, what could be more high value than that? At their convenience, gave them access to my calendar. And honestly, that felt better than I think the workshop would have felt. So it really was a gift from the universe. And the pivot went seamlessly. Everybody was super understanding and it was aligned. And for me, that's just a teachable moment, guys, because if I were to have followed through with that workshop with 3 sick kids at home and me feeling like I wasn't going to be doing my best in any way, shape, or form, I would not be practicing what I preach. And that's really important to me. When people come to me for coaching and we do EFT tapping and they're like, do you do this? Yeah, I do this. You know, do you practice what you preach? That's an important thing to consider when you're working with people. Do you take your own advice? And I do. So I took my own advice on Monday and I was like, you know what? Doesn't feel right. Not going to do it. But I have an alternative that's even better. So yeah, that was Monday. And this is the end of the week now that I'm recording this. But yeah, it's been a week. And, you know, up before that week, I just had so many revelations. The week before, I had so many great calls with people that are in my network and complementary businesses, business besties of mine, and things that were so eye-opening. You know, I feel like my consciousness is elevating at this really, really fast rate right now. And sometimes that can be a challenge in and of itself because you feel like you're outgrowing the things that you're doing before you can even get a real hold on what you're doing. It's very quantum, but regardless, it's good stuff. And, you know, I'm kind of looking at all the different issues that like, you know, I deal with my clients and things like that this week, because I'm always, you know, brainstorming for my clients. You know, I have sessions with my clients, and then in between, it's like, how am I going to help them next time? What do we need to do? What's a new angle on this? What do we need to explore more of? What questions do I need to be asking? I'm very active in between sessions with my between session work. It's part of what I think inspires a lot of people to work with me, because they know that it's not just me showing up and being like, oh, so what did we talk about last time? Can you refresh my memory? No, nobody wants to have to do that kind of work. They're there to do a totally different kind of work. So I make sure that that's set up really well in advance. And that's kind of some things I was brainstorming on. But I think about all the things where people are looking for change and it's not happening for them, myself included. And there's always a resistance. There's always a part of us that is just not allowing ourselves to line up with our source energy and kind of have that surrender, that acceptance, all those kind of things. And I think a lot of people misinterpret surrender too, but it's always that resistance. I can't tell you how many times, and I know this for a fact because this happened with me when I first started doing it, but I've said this before, that when I first started doing EFT tapping, that the work that I did on my food cravings was probably the most powerful thing I did, like right off the bat. That was like, whoa, this works amazingly well. Need to do more, need to explore other things. But I can't tell you how hard it was to actually sit down to work on that food craving, because that's the uncomfortable thing. I can teach my clients how to do that work. I can do it with them. I can coach them through it. But usually people don't want to do it. They don't want to not want the food. They say they don't want it. They say they want what will happen when they stop consuming it or when they're interested in consuming something else. But usually they are very resistant to the work that is so easy to do that would change that for them. And that is one of the best ways that I can explain nervous system work, because we go in trying to solve the problem with our brain, but our brain was never meant to solve the problem. And that's so many people's problem right off the bat. Our consciousness was meant to solve the problem. But most people don't want to tap into that and are having a very hard time getting present. So with EFT, we get present, we elevate our consciousness, we get to
see things from a new place. And then those things that we're resistant to get easier. But sometimes you just resist the process. I will have clients come to me and say, gosh, I know you told me to do this, after our last session, before I saw you again. I didn't do it. And I don't know why I didn't do it. I knew I needed to do it. I just didn't do it. Like, okay, resistance. That's all right. It's really cool that you noticed that. Now we can work on it. It's just a matter of what we're going to put the focus on. But sometimes people really do resist the very thing that changes it all for them. And it's always because that change is so unknown that the idea of actually doing something that creates it just makes us freeze. We get into that freeze pattern. So I know I've been all over the place with this, but I was just feeling like I needed to come in here. I needed to share this, teachable moment that happened with my workshop this week. And I really wanted to share a little bit about the resistance because I've come up against it so much lately, and I work with so many people that it's like, gosh, no, I do tapping, I do life coaching, I do all this self-work, I'm doing breath work, I'm doing rituals, I'm whatever, and yet still there's fill in the blank. And I love that because I know that at the end of the day, it's not any one ritual or technique or anything that changes things for people. It's activating that higher consciousness and looking at things from a different perspective through different eyes that makes the real shift for us. And it's such valuable work to do. And yeah, so that's my week. I'm going to go slide into the weekend. And I know this was a little shorter of an episode than usual. I'm curious though, do you guys like shorter episodes? Do you like longer episodes? I am an ADHD brain and I tend to create longer episodes, but I think when I consume podcasts, I actually like shorter ones. So hit me up and let me know because I can definitely produce shorter episodes, especially for my solo episodes. I feel like conversations with guests require more time and respect for that conversation than a 15 or 30-minute podcast might allow for. But I'd love to know, listeners of mine, what your thoughts are on that. So please share. If you love the show, please leave a 5-star review. It means the world to me. I love seeing your reviews. I love reading your reviews. And I always, always, always take your feedback to heart. Thanks for listening to Becoming More Me. Have an awesome day.
Thanks so much for listening. If you loved this episode, please share it with a friend or post on social media and tag me so I can personally connect and thank you. Until next time, keep taking bold and brave action steps towards becoming more of who you want to be in this world. You are capable, you are worthy, and you are enough. Keep shining your light.